Thank you again for joining us. Thank you for, this is the first coffee break of the
Ahí lo
year.
envío, Samuel, a ver si le llega al usuario.
So the topic of today is what are the implications of the recent minutes, the minute 325 and last year minute 331, the waters of the Rio Grande. Most of you are already familiar with the new developments on our 1944 water treaty. And I'm going to go with the speakers in a bit, but first I want to thank you as always and thank our sponsors for the support. Water Resources, Arizona Water Resources Research Center, Texas Water Resources Institute, the North American Development Bank, Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, and California Water Resources Institute. Thank you, as always, for the support of the forum. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and quickly introduce our speakers, our panelists, our guests today. First, ladies first, Karen Chapman. Thank you, Karen, for being here. She is coordinator of the Rio Grande joint venture, which has been an important institution, part of the negotiations and representation of the ecological sector in the recent minutes. She's been since 2021 the coordinator of the Rio Grande joint venture, a partnership of organizations working on migratory bird habitat conservation across the Chihuahuan Desert and Tamaulipas brushlands of South Texas and northern Mexico. She graduated from Miami University of Ohio in 1986 with a Bachelor of Science in Communication and minor in Spanish. Over the past 30 years, Karen has served in a variety of leadership positions with nonprofit environmental organizations, including the National Audubon Society, Texas Center for Policy Studies, Environmental Defense Fund, and now with the American Bird Conservancy. Thank you, Karen, for being here today. Next, Jorge Luis Lopez Martinez. He is representative of the Tamaulipas Civil Society organizations on the Tamaulipas State Agricultural Council. He is an agricultural engineer with a long career presiding over various organizations, including the Regional Union of Rural Landowners, the Northern Tamaulipas Regional Agricultural Union, the Tamaulipas Regional Agricultural Council, and the Tamaulipas State Agricultural Council as well. Since 1999, he has been a founding member of the Rio Bravo Basin Council, representing the agro-industry and civil society committees. Thank you, Jose Luis, for being here today. Next, Sam Sandoval Solis. He is professor at University of California, Davis. He is also associate director of the forum. He is professor in water resources management at the University of California, Davis. He is responsible for the water management and policy research program. Samuel has explored strategies to improve the water management for human and environmental requirements. He has focused his research programs in the transboundary basins of the Rio Grande Bravo, Colorado River, and the state of California. And of course, he's one of the few experts on both international basins between Mexico and the US, and we are very happy to have you, all of you here. With that, I'm gonna open the discussion. Just quickly, I wanna share with you that we will be having, at the end of the discussion, we're gonna have, if I can find it, of course. Where is it? We're gonna have a survey, a live survey with all of you, because we want to hear from you as well. And we're gonna do that live also. Just hold on, because I am looking for I'm going to start with the first question today. And if it's okay, Karen, if I start with you, please remember that we're going to have 4 minutes for each question. If each of you wants to share something, please just be aware that aware of the time. We're going to have 4 minutes for each question. So the first one relates to the recent meeting, the 331. I have issues pronouncing the 331 minute. And what does it say? What are the implications? What are the goods, or I don't want to say the goods or not the goods, but what can we say about in terms of progress? What does the minute say in terms of progress? And that you can highlight within this framework. And with that, Karen, do you want to start?
Sure. Thank you, Rosario, and hello, everybody. Thank you for the invitation. I'm really pleased to be on this panel with Samuel and Jorge Luis, so I appreciate that. I'm going to speak from the conservation standpoint because we are a conservation organization, the Rio Grande joint venture. Our parent organization is the American Bird Conservancy, so we are very concerned about the status of migratory birds and the natural resources that they depend upon. We're, as a result, also concerned with the river itself and with the river being able to function as a river, as a healthy functioning river. 331 provides some flexibility to Mexico to meet its treaty obligations, but there's some important environmental trade-offs that we have to address or that we need to recognize, and I'll address those later in this session. To set the stage, though, I just wanted to point out that we all know the river provides needed municipal and agricultural water supplies. It's also an important natural resource with many wildlife species associated with it that rely on it as well. In Texas, the Rio Grande since 1978 has been designated a wild and scenic river for 196 miles in the upper reach of Texas, where it touches Big Bend National Park and down to the Turrell-Valverde County line. This designation is for the U.S. half of the river. However, in 2009, Mexico declared the same stretch of river on their side as a monumento. So it also has a special designation, that entire stretch of river on both sides of the border. This particular, the wild and scenic river designation is given to free-flowing rivers without impoundments that are considered remote, generally inaccessible, but which also contain important natural, cultural, recreational, and scenic values. So there are many species, as I said, that depend on proper functioning of the wild and scenic river stretch, including birds like the peregrine falcon, amphibians like the Rio Grande leopard frog, and fish such as the Rio Grande cichlid, just to name a few. And of course, communities depend on healthy ecosystem functioning for their economies all up and down the river. In the lower reaches downstream of Amistad, the river also has valuable ecosystem values, including riparian habitat for Tamaulipan thorn forest, thorn scrub, and lots of other vegetative communities that protect threatened and endangered species. All of this relies on flows being in the river. And as we know from research, I'm sure Samuel is going to share with us the river's hydrograph, and we know that we're seeing much reduced flows from historic. So I want to get to an important element that we're very hopeful about that was established in Minute 331, particularly the Environment Work Group, which brings together conservation nonprofits, state like TCEQ representatives, and federal conservation entities from both sides of the border to talk about environmental projects that we can undertake and that will really help to keep those ecosystem values intact that I talked about. This really establishes, the work group establishes a binational conservation community and collaboration, a way to discuss projects and a mechanism for engaging across the border and with IBWC and SILA in a meaningful way on a regular basis around potential environmental restoration projects that will aid in the ultimate goal of enhancing river flow and mitigating the potential losses due to deliveries that are potentially going to be shifted from the upstream stretch to the downstream stretch. So I'll stop there. I didn't actually time my comments, Rosario, so I
You're
hope I'm
fine.
not going over.
You're fine.
Thank you.
Karen, can I just ask you to double check if you are in the English channel on the interpretation icon? Just make sure
Whoops.
that you are actually in the English channel.
Okay.
And then, please. Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you for that. Next, who wants to be second? Jose Luis, do you want to cover, or Samuel? Either who is the brave? Jose Luis, do you want to cover?
No, me gustaría que fuera Samuel para que nos deje un poquito más margen.
Órale, pues está bien. Si quieres, yo empiezo. Voy.
Okay, adelante.
Okay, so hi everyone. I was telling Rosario that I was doing my homework like a quarter to the minute, but I do want to do this so all of us we start from the same part. So I hope that you're seeing my screen. Rosario, Marco, are you seeing it?
Yes,
Okay.
we're good.
So I put it in both languages so we know what we're talking. So Ministry in 309 established a work group that is called Rio Grande Projects Work Group. The environmental work group that Karen is mentioning, that I think has been a long work group that we've been fighting for decades, and continue to address water quality. And then it asks for coordination between these groups and the groups already existing. And then later it talks about some research and guidelines when the reservoirs get filled on the US storage, how they will manage or to start working on that one. This for me is kind of the preamble. The following, so there are, what I'm listing here are the resolutions, and there are 17 resolutions. These first 5, what I mentioned, the second ones talked about that whenever the storage on Mexican reservoirs of the 6 tributaries go above the NAMO, above the conservation capacity, Mexico shall release that excess volume, provided that water is secured there for reducing the current deficit or reducing potential future deficits. The delivery of water can be carried out by the 2/3. So in addition to the 1/3 to the US, Mexico can also use the 2/3 of Mexican water there. Considering that Mexico have to give advance notice, transfer of water from Mexico from the reservoirs. Also, in Resolution 8, it says that Mexico can use water from the San Juan and Alamo River, considering that Mexico does need that water or is unusable. And that one, I think we'll have to discuss that. And that Mexico talks to the US and that water can be put to beneficial use. Prior agreement means that there is an understanding between both countries. The Resolution 7 to 8 will be applied provided that Mexico combined storage always keeps water for the municipal use along the border. In the event that Mexico delivers water in excess, that water will be credited in the future. I don't think that will ever happen. I think at some point we can put I will put the graph where we are on the Mexico's deliveries. It's been the worst ever. The 12 is that in order for Mexico, well, in recognition that Mexico is doing this, the US is willing to invest in water conservation projects. Once again, putting some dollars, seeing how much money, how much water we can get. Resolutions 6 to 14 are temporary measures. they will expire in 5 years. This minute does not grant the U.S. any right to other waters that are located in the treaty. Similarly, so this is, I think we're going to have a saga. 325 was the initial minute that later the outcome was minute 331. We're going to have another minute in 229, and when the minute shall be enforced. So I will stop there, and let me see if I can, okay. But basically this is, so all of us, we know what we're talking are basically these 17 resolutions, a lot of those related with how Mexico can deliver water and the creation of some groups.
Thank you, Sam. Jose Luis, it is your turn now.
Sí, correcto. Pues en principio agradecerle a Samuel la invitación a participar en este trascendente foro con tan nutrida y tan experta concurrencia. Voy a tratar de centrarme en las cosas más delicadas de la minuta y en las cosas más concretas, porque el tiempo pues es escaso, ¿no? Creo que ya voy a poder compartir mi, mi pantalla. Si me permiten medio segundito, creo que tengo tiempo para lograrlo hacer. No sé si ya la perciban.
Sí, José Luis, ya la vemos. Adelante.
Sí,
Y nomás déjame correr porque yo soy el que no la veo.
Se ve un
Bueno,
poquito chiquita, pero ahí va. Ándale, ahí
pues
estás. Ahí estamos.
déjame la abro más. Mira, pues realmente, evidentemente México ha tenido un problema muy serio en las entregas de agua. Y ahí se referían al ciclo 35 y al ciclo 36. No, los problemas vienen desde el siglo 27 y han sido recurrentes. Son más de 30 años en que México no ha podido cumplir con estas entregas del volumen comprometido con los Estados Unidos de aguas que proceden de México de la subregión 6 tributarios. Y a lo mejor algo interesante o algo importante que hay que comentar es que el Acta 331 no prevé la forma en que México atienda la problemática de fondo, o sea, el origen del problema. Solamente veo allá en el resolutivo 16 que hasta diciembre de 2029 se van a explorar medidas que permitan una distribución equitativa de los volúmenes disponibles entre los usuarios mexicanos y los Estados Unidos. ¿A qué me refiero con que no atiende los problemas de fondo? Voy a tratar de explicar el problema original con mucha claridad, porque esa es la base de que podamos entendernos. Miren, desde que se firma el tratado, se previó que la subregión 6 tributarios, donde México entregaría ese volumen a Estados Unidos, tendría un escurrimiento natural, un escurrimiento virgen de 3.388 millones de metros cúbicos. También se previó que a futuro México iba a usar 1.965, que es lo azul es lo del tratado original. De esta forma llegarían al Río Bravo 948 millones de metros cúbicos. Y con la tercera parte serían 474. Obviamente se cumpliría sin problema con los 431.7 comprometidos. Eso quedó muy claro en algunos estudios que hizo por ahí el ingeniero Oribe Alba, que todo el mundo conocemos. ¿Cuál es el problema real que yo digo que no atiende el acta en este momento? Es que en el último balance hidráulico que trabajamos, Samuel, ahí en el Consejo de Cuenca y que fue publicado en el Diario Oficial en el 2018, el agua prácticamente sigue siendo la misma. Digamos que persisten en la cuenca los 3.388 millones de metros cúbicos en la subregión 6 tributarios. El problema, y hay que tenerlo muy claro, es que México ya está utilizando 2.507, casi más de 500 más de los que deberíamos. Con esta extracción en la subregión, solamente están llegando en promedio al Río Bravo 587. Y con la tercera parte, solamente llegarían 293. El propio diario oficial reconoce que en esta condición no se puede cumplir con el tratado y la minuta no atiende este tema tan trascendente. Y estoy hablando de una condición de escurrimiento regular. O sea que existen en promedio los 3.388 promedio. En los años secos, obviamente, que el faltante potencial es mayor, como ocurre actualmente. Actualmente no hemos entregado ni más que 150 promedio anuales y tenemos un déficit de 1.200 que puede superar los 1.500 al cierre del ciclo. A eso me refiero con que no se ha atendido con precisión. Y adicionalmente también quiero dejar muy claro que México no ha cumplido con el protocolo del tratado en el siguiente sentido. Muchos he dicho que construimos muchas presas en la subregión 6 tributarios. Efectivamente, tenemos N presas con una capacidad extraordinaria y el tratado lo permitía, pero bajo una condición. Decía que la operación de estas presas las iba a desempeñar la dependencia federal y esas funciones serían observando el cumplimiento del tratado. Tenemos las presas, retenemos el agua, pero no la hacemos escurrir para que se cumpla el tratado y eso es un problema adicional muy grave que también tenemos que buscar la forma de resolver. Porque mientras no dejemos escurrir el agua, el problema seguirá siendo recurrente y solamente estaremos afectando a los usuarios mexicanos del Bajo Bravo. Hay un error en la minuta 331 que también la quiero notar. Eh, Indirectamente en el resolutivo 6 se establece que México valorará la posibilidad de asignar volúmenes para el cumplimiento del tratado con agua almacenada en las presas que tenemos. Ahí creo que eso es contraproducente. El tratado no dice que vamos a valorar. El tratado dice que vamos a operar las presas observando que se cumpla el tratado. Entonces, este resolutivo resulta contraproducente y contrario al tratado que no sé por qué lo pusieron. O sea, no es que vayamos a evaluar, es que tenemos la obligación de hacerlo. Y una cosa es evaluar y otra cosa es hacerlo como obligación, como lo plantea el tratado. Yo ahí dejaría la respuesta a la primera pregunta y espero no haberme excedido del tiempo, Rosario.
Thank you, Jose Luis. Thank you very much. So with that, I'm not going to make any comment, just I want to go straight to the second question because we are kind of seeing where the problems rely and what are the good things too, because it is indeed progress, but potentially limited. What are the possible implications of implementing the provisions of this minute or minutes? Because 331, it's the consequence of or the response of 325. What are the potential scenarios and who would benefit or be affected by this? And with that, I'm going to go with Karen again. Would you mind telling us your thoughts on this?
Sure. Well, again, I'm going to go back to the conservation perspective. In the minute, it does establish a mechanism for Mexico to fulfill its water delivery obligations with flows delivered from other tributaries and it can shift some of the responsibility away from surface water from the Rio Conchos and particularly to the Rio San Juan. This provides some needed flexibility to Mexico, but it also could impact the wild and scenic river stretch that I mentioned in my first comments negatively in terms of reduced flows. So there is a trade-off there. We also have to think about groundwater. I'm sorry, I know you're an expert on this topic, and you know, we have a hydrologist on staff who is doing research along with Kevin Urbanczyk at Sol Ross. Jeff Bennett and Kevin Urbanczyk have done some studies on that section of the river on contributions from spring flows and groundwater. And they have concluded that much of the base flow of the river in the wild and scenic stretch is now supplied by groundwater. In fact, in most years, and they've collected data for 15 years now, funded by the National Park Service, and they're showing that groundwater contributions are only going to be more and more important. So these are really important to protect. In many cases, these are transboundary aquifers. Second, I think this minute and the environmental work group also provide an opportunity for us to maybe nudge some more attention to the tributaries and rehabilitation of Rio Grande tributaries, and possible restoration projects upstream that could positively impact the main stem of the river. We've seen some success with this, and I'm talking about things like process-based natural infrastructure on private lands, such as filter dams. These can help to slow flows that are just rushing down the tributaries during monsoons and have the potential to reduce sediment loads at their discharge points into the main stem of the river, which we know is a growing issue. These types of projects are gaining popularity with landowners, and they can really improve watershed health upstream. And that again leads to increased reliability and predictability of flows. So some of our partner organizations that are working on such projects include Pro Natura Noreste in Mexico, and there's a lot of interest in this work. They have initiated some community projects as well using these techniques, and also projects to improve soil health and reforestation. And it strikes me that these are the kind of projects that can gain traction on the Rio Grande. This is a difficult place to work. Like, not only is it a river, but it's just obviously it's a border. And that limits in some ways what we can actually do without having to, go through a lot of different mechanisms to be able to get permission to work in that stretch. So we've heard a lot about the great work that's happened on the Colorado River to bring folks together. This is an important example for us of how binational cooperation can lead to conservation gains. But these are two very different rivers. The Rio Grande and the Colorado are different scenarios altogether, both politically, in terms of their constituents, and of course, because Rio Grande is an international border. So we need to think a little bit differently, maybe, about what is feasible on the Rio Grande as opposed to the Colorado. So far, we've been able to work within communities and on private lands on these smaller projects that we hope will incrementally build resilience over time into the system and improve watershed health on the uplands. So we'll continue these types of projects, and we look to potentially build momentum through the environmental work group on some larger projects such as off-channel resaca storage, and maybe some larger green infrastructure projects like that. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, for reminding us that it's the river, but it's also the border, right? And it has different strategic value, not just for environmental resources, but also for social, economical, political. It's not an easy river, and we love it for that. Samuel, do you want to comment on the second question again? What are the possible implications of implementing the provisions of these minutes?
So, thanks everyone. I really want to highlight what Karen mentions. That
bloqueado el micrófono.
I think Jorge. Oh, there you go. No. I think that was.
Oh, I am muted since when? No?
I hear you.
Fine, right? Okay, all right.
No, what I was to say that it really is important what Karen mentioned, that this binational environmental work group has been fighting for a long time. And something that is for sure is that we can have a healthy environment without affecting other users. We can release water from the dams, and that can pass from one bucket to the other, from one reservoir to the other, and providing environmental flows. So that is possible. It can happen. So that will be on the plus side, that we have an avenue for that. What things can be improved, or who can be affected? So I think I will go back to what Jorge Luis mentioned. We have certain amount of water. We're not attacking the problem. We're attacking the illness. We're providing an aspirin for delivering water to the US. There is a big problem that is related with the overuse of water in the Rio Conchos. He mentioned it in the commentaries that in the links that I put it in there. It is true. That water is in the Rio Conchos. It is staying there, and that is a big issue because basically that water cannot pass through, cannot improve the environment in the Big Bend or in other key areas, and also that water that is not released. At the end, it will affect Jorge Luis and all the users in the lower Rio Grande. That one is for sure. Now, I think what for me is very worrying is that now we're included San Juan and Alamo rivers, which they have always been included. Don't get me wrong. But to be more explicit, basically we're taking the weight of the users of the 6 tributaries and now shifting that weight, shifting that water delivery downstream. And downstream, we still have Bajo Rio San Juan, another irrigation district, and we also have the city of Monterrey. And most importantly, some of that water will ultimately go to the agricultural users of the Bajo Rio Bravo. The ones that definitely that are at the lower end and with the short end of the stick is definitely the lower Rio Grande Valley, Bajo Rio Bravo users. Those are extremely affected. So I don't know. I think I would love to be more positive, but for me that's what is happening.
Thank you, Sam. I'm just taking notes here, and it's full. So, Jose Luis, do you want to mention on the possible implications of the implementation of this of the provisions of this new minute?
Sí, por supuesto.
Or minutes.
Con mucho gusto. Me quedé en este. Mira, yo creo que sí es muy importante que entendamos de fondo la precisión que tenía el tratado y que no lo estamos pues tratando de respetar puntualmente. El Acta 331 efectivamente nos da una serie de ventajas, pero también nos crea una serie de problemas que empiezan por no respetar precisamente las precisiones del tratado. Todos sabemos que el tratado jamás prevé la posibilidad de entregar agua mexicana que proceda de tributarios no aforados. Incluso el Acta 234, en la que pretende basarse la 331 para entregar agua de no aforados, es un acta que tampoco establece textualmente la posibilidad de entregar agua de no aforados para reponer faltantes, porque eso implica un cambio en el tratado. Y ahí empiezan muchos problemas de origen. ¿Por qué? Porque para nosotros, por ejemplo, el Acta 331 es ilegal. ¿Por qué? Porque la SILA y en particular la comisionada mexicana carece de facultades para suscribir un acta que contenga cambios al tratado. Esta es solo una facultad exclusiva del Senado de la República. El artículo 77 de nuestra Constitución dice que son facultades exclusivas del Senado aprobar los tratados, así como terminarlos, modificarlos o hacer declaraciones sobre los mismos. O sea, no está cumpliendo con los requisitos legales mínimos necesarios, incluso hasta para la parte americana. El propio protocolo del tratado previó que para Estados Unidos nada de lo contenido en el tratado o en el protocolo se podía interpretar como una disminución de las facultades del Congreso. Y estamos haciendo cosas sin respetar las facultades de los congresos. Y eso es muy delicado. Ahora los escenarios, miren. El primer escenario, que se llama inercial, pues es lo que pasó en los últimos 30 años, en donde, pues efectivamente, el azul es el agua que entregábamos y que no llegaba al límite de lo que deberíamos entregar, y pasaban 2 ciclos y al tercero le reponíamos lo que no había llegado. Y ahí siempre entregamos el agua que faltaba. Y si no hacemos nada, va a seguir pasando lo mismo. Siguen los faltantes, los reponemos, siguen los faltantes, los reponemos. Eso es lo que ocurría mientras no resuelvamos el problema original. Yo diría que sí se va a lograr algo, pero va a ser a cuenta de afectar indebidamente a otros. Ahorita hablaré del caso del río San Juan, pero yo creo que si logramos corregir el problema de la sobreexplotación, en cuanto salgamos de la crisis actual del ciclo 36, que ocuparíamos un ciclo más para resolverlo, no se puede resolver en este ciclo, automáticamente el tratado vuelve a ser sustentable y vuelve a entregarse el agua a Estados Unidos sin necesidad de ningún parche adicional. Yo planteo que transitoriamente, mientras logramos quitar esa sobreexplotación y que solamente usemos el agua que debemos de usar, hagamos cuando menos una distribución equitativa de las aguas. Hay muchos estudios de Sila donde se habla de que incluso en este ciclo 36, los primeros 4 años, pues México utilizó del agua disponible mucho más porcentaje del porcentaje que entregamos. Y eso obviamente nos deja ver muy mal y nos dice que no estamos haciendo lo correcto. En cuanto a las consecuencias, son evidentes. Igual que el Valle de Texas, como lo vimos anteriormente, también el Bajo Bravo y en particular el Distrito 025, pues del agua que debería recibir, pues estuvo recibiendo la mitad en estos 30 años. Pero si aplicamos el Acta 331 en estos 30 años, solamente hubiera recibido un 39%. Y un distrito de riego con un 39% de su concesión no puede existir, ¿eh? Con el Acta 331, si se maneja inapropiadamente, va a desaparecer el sistema de riego más grande de México, que son más de 200,000 hectáreas de riego. Eso es un escenario que no podemos aceptar de ninguna manera. Y simplemente si pretendemos aplicar la minuta 331 en el ciclo 36, pues este año no hubiéramos tenido una gota de agua, en absoluto. Y tendríamos que ocupar 3 años del ciclo 37 para quedarnos sin agua y poder recuperar el déficit monumental que hemos generado. Creo que nos faltan algunas cosas pues que precisar. Dejo lo del caso de las aguas del río San Juan para mi siguiente intervención.
Thank you, Jose Luis. Thank you for that comment. It's refreshing. It is refreshing. Let's talk about the third question. How feasible, and you already spoke a little bit about that, the feasibility of the implementation. But I'm going to go towards Karen right now, and try to cover a little bit the extent in which we believe the act or the minute will resolve the current issue. And we kind of have discussed that a little bit, but related mainly to the US and farmers in the lower basin from both sides. If you can have a comment on that, or on your sector as well.
Yeah, well, it's a hard question. I'm not sure I can speak to the feasibility of the minute resolving the delivery issue, but while we're in this phase of testing out the feasibility and the implications of the minute, I want to just sort of echo some of what Jorge Luis was saying. I hope we'll think about wrestling with these very tough questions of reducing demand through more efficient use of water and the recognition that we're dealing with a resource that is renewable only at the pace of nature. And, we don't control Mother Nature. We have a lot of examples of communities making investments in efficiencies that are really good examples, like the Brownsville Public Utilities Board, the city of El Paso, and elsewhere. I think these types of measures should be front and center. We need to really be putting a lot of effort and thought into how we reduce demand, how we become more efficient, because this is becoming a finite resource now. It is going to run out if we think we can continue to draw it down. Obviously, we are wrong. So I think that these types of measures we should be elevating to the top of the list, and they should increase going forward, despite where the deliveries come from. These are projects that we should be thinking about and elevating. So, and this is not to suggest that we can work we can do meet all of the demand with efficiencies and so forth. But those, I think, are going to get us further way down the road. I also have seen, we've seen in the news reports that in the headwaters of the Rio Conchos, and I've heard comments from our Mexican colleagues that the Sierra Tarahumara is in an extreme drought. It's driving some of the indigenous from their homes, and ironically, into some of the irrigated fields in the Chihuahuan Desert that the Rio Conchos and some of the groundwater supplies there are helping to irrigate. So I really think this is a crisis. We're already in it, and it's not human nature to plan ahead. We tend to react to crises, but we're in one, and we're in a crisis right now. And I think we need to take a really long, hard look at what is sustainable and what is not. And if we decide something is not sustainable, then what are we going to do about it? We need careful planning. We need institutional, government, private sector support and collaborations that are respectful of community and sovereignty and human rights. And so I'll end there. I didn't exactly answer the question, but
No, you did. I mean, it's not an easy question.
yeah.
It's not an easy answer either. It's not one answer, right? So there are a lot of things that we need to be doing like today in order to tackle the crisis that we live in. Samuel, following on what Karen said, and the next question, I want to get into the next question because I really want to get into the public and the audience questions. But what are the issues that remain unresolved? And we have talked about those and the implications and all that. But what would be the next step? I mean, this is a step, right? It's not enough. It's kind of a yes, but not ready yet, probably kind of a effort. But it's a progress towards that. I mean, the fact that we have a policy group, an environmental group, the fact that we are thinking about looking for alternative instruments, the fact that the minute also says that we're going to have another minute, right, in 2029, it says that we're thinking about something, right? So what should we be thinking about in the future?
So Rosario, I think there are three, at least so this is for me kind of a wish list, what you're asking me, and I know Christmas has passed, but I can go back and I have this for Santa Claus this year. But actually before going there, I would like to put the plug for Karen Chapman for president, all what she said before that was cool. So the first one, I think this minute has the good part of the environmental group that finally we were able to get it. And I don't want to underscore that. I think the next step for that, to see what can be work, some pulse flows or some pilot flows. We have seen Mother Nature is super forgiving in there. Like we have dried the river in the Big Bend for 3-4 times in the last 4 years, but it is very forgiving. Let's just give it a push for nature. So that one will be one thing. The second one will be now I'm going to bring a ghost of the 1944, the extraordinary drought. If you look at every time that, and in minute 331 and so on, it is still saying like, unless we have an extraordinary drought or an infrastructure accident, something like that. But that has not been happening. And just to be very clear, in the Colorado River, we are seeing reductions of water assigned from the US to Mexico. Like it is happening. Like there is an extraordinary drought clause that we have signed in the Colorado River. And we haven't put an end on this. And this is not a way to get out. This is for me is just to say like, yes, if we're in a drought, everyone will reduce their demand. But if we're not, and we're seeing what Jorge Luis is mentioning, that without actually checking notes, we have exactly the same numbers. It's an overuse of water in some parts. So then this is not a drought. This is what Karen is mentioning. This is a man-made problem that we're having here. So defining the extraordinary drought. Now I'm going to bring another ghost, and that will be from 2002, 2004. The Interstate Compact in Mexico, el Reglamento de Aguas del Río Bravo. My friends, I've seen drafts over and over again since 2002. Collado, and that was back in the IMTA. I mean, I still had black hair when that happened, and now look, we cannot play a soccer game for 20 something years without the regulations. That is the first step. It will not solve it, but it is just a first step to make sure that everyone knows how we're playing. Some of the iterations of the Reglamento de Aguas, it had that the delivery of water from Mexico to the US shall not be greater than 10% or 20% of their target. That is a win-win for everyone except for few. So those three things, an environmental flow pilot program, sign me in. The extraordinary drought, there are work already done on what is an extraordinary drought, sign me in. And the Reglamento de Aguas, the interstate compact between all the users in Mexico, sign me in.
Thank you, Sam. We have homework. There's a huge homework at stake. Thank you for the comments. I invite you to respond and to interact for all those comments in the chat. They're very good. So, and please be reminded that this has been recorded, and we're definitely going to post this on our website and YouTube channel and everything, and for you to watch it on a later day. Jose Luis, following up on the comment
Sí, gracias.
of Samuel,
Sí, gracias.
what do you see we need to be doing,
¿Sí me
pursuing
escuchan?
towards, I'd say 2029, but probably before that, given the conditions that we
Sí,
expect
mira,
to
o
happen
sea, qué bueno que nos
before
juntaste las
October
últimas
this
tres
year.
preguntas en una sola para
Um,
poder eficientar el tiempo, ¿no? ¿Sí me escuchan? A ver, no sé si me escuchen.
yes, we can hear you. We can hear
Sí, sí,
you.
te
Mira,
escuchamos.
volviendo a lo de las implicaciones de la 331, realmente se convierte en un espejismo muy complejo, eh, porque trae también complicaciones internas de la propia acta. Por ejemplo, las entregas del río San Juan dice que son cuando México no las necesite o no las pueda utilizar. Número uno, el río San Juan tiene un déficit mayor proporcionalmente que el río Conchos. Y cosas como este año que aparentemente sobra agua, no sobra. Sí se necesitan y sí se pueden utilizar, y ahorita tenemos una complicación que no hemos logrado resolver. De hecho, no se ha podido aplicar el acta en este momento, y hoy teníamos una reunión en Monterrey con Sila y con Agua porque está entrampado este proceso. También se habla de que en la minuta estas entregas van a estar sujetas a un acuerdo previo. Y en México ese acuerdo previo, la Cancillería acordó con el gobierno de Tamaulipas que solamente sería después de tratarlo con los usuarios afectados. Y eso no se ha podido dar, y ya se está entregando algo de agua, y ciertamente irregular. También la propia minuta y el propio tratado habla de que en inciso 9E del artículo 9, pues habla nuevamente que solamente se pueden entregar aguas cuando no se necesiten o no se puedan utilizar. Y eso pues es un escenario prácticamente que no deja de ser un espejismo. Esto es lo que yo les decía, la barra verde es lo que ha estado usando México de las aguas de los primeros 3 años del ciclo 36, y lo rojo es lo que entregamos, y para nada es equitativo. Estamos usando mucho más agua de la que entregamos, y eso no puede seguir siendo posible. Y al no atender el problema fundamental de la sobreexplotación, pues El acta no garantiza resolver el problema del envío de agua a Estados Unidos. Y sí complica aún más el serio problema con los agricultores mexicanos del Bajo Bravo de la cuenca, que también han sufrido por 30 años la restricción. Ya concluyo con las pendientes y propuestas. Obviamente que algo trae de muy útil la minuta, pero yo insisto en que no está entrando a resolver el problema de fondo. Coincido con Samuel que bien sería que tuviéramos un reglamento de distribución que también está prácticamente entrampado, no está avanzando. Y, eh, pero se necesita que se prevea el que México no utilice un volumen mayor que el previsto cuando se firmó el tratado. El agua, cuando se firmó el tratado, bien se ha dicho, sigue siendo la misma en este momento. Entonces, tenemos que usar solamente la parte que sustentablemente podemos usar y dejar escurrir al río Bravo la parte que corresponde al tratado. Eso tiene que ser necesariamente un punto a atender en la próxima minuta, que yo digo que solamente aspira a resolver en el 2029 una distribución equitativa, que algo atiende el problema de fondo, pero muy leve. Por eso yo digo que lo otro es que en tanto se logra restablecer esa sustentabilidad, o sea, en cuanto solamente usemos el agua que podemos usar eh, de la disponible, un tema transitorio puede ser distribuir año con año equitativamente los volúmenes disponibles. Eso se prevé que lo vamos a revisar de aquí al 29, ¿no? Deberíamos de entenderlo de inmediato. ¿Por qué? Porque es ciertamente injusto que no tengamos una distribución cuando menos equitativa del agua disponible. Si es poquita, pues poquita para todos, decimos siempre. Si es mucha, pues mucha para todos. Y yo terminaría diciendo que, número uno, ya lo dije en los escenarios, al restablecer la sustentabilidad, se puede cumplir sin ningún problema el tratado de aquí a futuro, como ocurrió en los primeros 50 años de vida del tratado. Cuando rompimos la sustentabilidad, cuando sacamos más agua de la que nos tocaba, pues obviamente que dimos al traste con las entregas de agua. Y repito, y en tanto, avancemos en esa distribución equitativa que sí permitiría una mayor predictibilidad en las entregas de agua y un menor faltante en el volumen comprometido. O sea, es un paso importante si podemos lograr ese paso de distribuir el agua equitativamente y seguir trabajando en el fondo, seguir trabajando en el origen, seguir trabajando en no usar más agua de la que podemos utilizar y ahí ser más eficientes, como se ha dicho por ahí la doctora Karen, pues es una herramienta muy importante a utilizar. Yo ahí dejaría mis comentarios, sé que es un tema muy delicado y más expresarlo en un foro internacional, pero creo que quienes tenemos alguna responsabilidad técnica, tenemos que hablarnos con la verdad. Hay cosas que ocultarlas resulta contraproducente. Yo ahí dejaría mi intervención.
Thank you, Jose Luis. Thank you very much for those sensitive comments. We need to be sensitive, definitely, with reality, right? From both sides, I guess. And let me just quickly took advantage of my position as moderator, and since Sam already mentioned it, and I'm in love with the topic of the extraordinary drought provision. How would you think this could apply? We do have extraordinary drought provision on the Rio Grande, but the treaty doesn't specifically say that it will be reduced allocations to both sides in the same proportion, right? It does say for the Colorado River, but it does not say it for the Rio Grande River. My question is, how that could be addressed? I know a minute could solve an issue and everything, but are you thinking, and I'm just putting this, so I'm putting a bomb out there, and then it's going to explode and then I'm going to run. So basically, are you saying that we should reduce allocations, that extraordinary drought provision could potentially be thought in a way that we distribute the available water at any given time to all the users? Is that what we were saying here?
Rosario, I think so. Let me see if I
A lo
explain
mejor si me
myself.
permites contestar, Rosario, ya que está fuera del programa la pregunta,
Of,
es un tema específico de
oh yeah,
sequía
go ahead.
extraordinaria. Mira, en los trabajos del Consejo de Cuenca los conoce Samuel muy a fondo y también voy a ser muy honesto. La cuenca es muy errática, tiene largos periodos de sequía y largos periodos de lluvia. Desde hace 150 años que se usó de referencia para poder ir moldeando la estadística del escurrimiento del río. Y lo que ha ocurrido realmente es que en términos de que podamos catalogar una sequía como extraordinaria en el marco de los parámetros que hay a nivel internacional de un escurrimiento de agua, no de la lluvia, de un escurrimiento, porque a ese tipo de sequía se refiere el tratado, no han ocurrido nunca en toda la vida del tratado, no ha habido una sequía extraordinaria. Se requeriría que la desviación estándar de los periodos más secos fuera 2 veces la desviación normal de las sequías, y eso, repito, no ha ocurrido. No ha habido una sequía extraordinaria que, por supuesto, ocuparíamos definirla, que fuera la SILA que a través de una minuta lo haga. Nosotros en el Consejo hicimos un estudio con la Organización Meteorológica Mundial, que también ya hemos puesto a disposición de la SILA como un elemento para que nos digan en qué condiciones hay una sequía extraordinaria, para prever, para prever que si no hay una sequía extraordinaria, no podemos definir una entrega a un siguiente ciclo. O sea, mal hemos hecho con sin sequía extraordinaria no entregar el agua que tenemos que entregar. Eso ha sido un error que tenemos que corregir. Y si no definimos la sequía extraordinaria en el Bravo con precisión matemática, pues vamos a seguir nosotros queriendo pelear que porque no me llovió el año pasado y no me llovió hace 2 años, pues voy a alegar que tengo una sequía extraordinaria cuando en los 5 años, en conjunto y en promedio, como habla el tratado, no hubo tal sequía extraordinaria. Repito, es un tema exageradamente delicado, pero digo lo mismo, tenemos que atenderlo, tenemos que enfrentarlo, tenemos que resolverlo si queremos avanzar en una solución de fondo en nuestra gran cuenca que nos dio vida pues a todos los que vivimos en ella.
Thank you, Jorge Luis. Samuel?
Yeah, the drought is one of the topics that we need to talk. But as we were having some discussions with Horacio, I think it can be distracted. The really the problem that we're facing right now is that we are living in a perennial drought, but not because it is not raining. It's because we just have dried out the river. A lot of over allocation of water rights. We're using much more water than what we have. Marusi also mentions the illegal extractions, illegal diversions. Again, another one. Count me in. We need to work on those. And I think so. In terms of what Jorge Luis mentioned, with or without a drought, reducing or having full allocation. This is nothing that it is very alien from any of us. I mean, it is already happening in the Texas Water Master. Depending on the storage users are allocated. It is also happening on the Rio Grande Compact, Elephant Butte Irrigation District, El Paso County, and Distrito 09, Valle de Juárez. They, depending on the amount of the reservoir, they go up and down. The same is happening in Hoover and in Lake Mead, depending on the storage, is how much water is being released. So here, I don't think this is nothing that is foreign, nor of engineers. So I think is what Jorge Luis and at least myself, I am advocating to have the political will to really, the drought is a difficult issue. This, having all of us agreeing on how much water can we use and agreeing on that is important, and how water will be shared. Very important for the environment, because if water is shared among users, water has to pass from one reservoir to the other. And making it passing in a way that is environmentally friendly is just moving water from one part to the other. And we can have very healthy environments. I think here a lot of political will.
Thank you, Sam. Karen, do you have a thought on this, or last thought of wisdom?
Yeah, well, I mean, there are others who are much more well-versed in this than I am, but I do want to point out that it's interesting to me that, you know, the discussion is, well, it's not extraordinary drought is not the issue. It's, you know, reducing our use. And I agree with that, although I do think, and it was also pointed out in the chat by others, that, you know, we don't have a definition of extraordinary drought. And the definition of extraordinary drought may change going forward. It was probably different, you know, in 1944 than it would be today. So I do think that would help to clarify, you know, for the basin users, what an extraordinary drought means. And when we're in it, then how do we apply the terms of the treaty?
Thank you. And because it's not extraordinary anymore, right? It's just the drought. It's just what it is. So I want to quickly jump. We have a live survey for you to fill out, and you can use your cell phone. And I'm going to give the power to Saul, Dr. Saul Arciniega, who have developed a survey for all of us to respond. And that way we can get some sense of what the audience is thinking. We apologize if we're missing options, because it's a very complex problem. We're trying to highlight what we have seen are the main issues. But Saul, if you want to take over and share your screen.
Ok. ¿Me escuchan? ¿Puedes escucharme, Rosario?
Yes.
Ok, bueno, vamos a compartirles una
Yes, we can
encuesta
hear
que
you.
ojalá que puedan responder. Tenemos la encuesta tanto en idioma español como en inglés. Les vamos a pasar también por el chat los links a la encuesta en caso de que por alguna razón no puedan escanear el código. Entonces, les compartiremos por el chat estas encuestas. Es la misma encuesta, son las mismas preguntas con las mismas opciones, solamente que está una en español y otra en inglés, dependiendo del idioma que prefieran. Entonces, les invitamos a participar rápidamente y ahorita haremos el
Please have in
ejercicio
mind,
de revisar
so-
las respuestas acumuladas, tanto de la encuesta en español como en inglés, para ver las opiniones generales, ¿no? respecto a estas minutas. Entonces,
Also, in
en
the
el chat
meantime,
ya
I
se
know
les ha
that I've been
compartido los links.
responding many of the questions, but I think either, once again, questions, please write them on the chat.
yes, we're going to revise. Once you respond, we're going to give you a couple of minutes to respond to the survey, and then we're going to show the results here. Everything is anonymous, don't worry about it. And let's see what you guys think too. It is important to, I guess, let out our thoughts. There are a lot of things that were discussed here that I haven't thought about it before. And, you know, we are at the border and we work in water issues, and still we don't know everything. And we don't have all the considerations and all the factors and all the elements that we need to consider, because we share the basin, so we share the problems as well. all the sectors. It is important to include the community on our thoughts and in the decision-making process. So I'm gonna stop talking.
Oh,
so you
Rosario,
can concentrate.
one thing also that you talk there is that I hope that what
Sí, nada
we
más
can
me
do here
gustaría
is
comentar,
whatever
mientras
unite
contestan la
us,
pregunta, nada más
so that
tengan en cuenta que hay algunas que
we can be
requieren que
united.
sí o
I
sí se
think it is
seleccione el
not
número de respuestas o de
Mexico's
opciones
water, US
que
water, or
se les
anyone's water.
indican.
It's our
Entonces, la
water.
primera
It's of all of
pregunta
us.
requiere que se seleccionen
And I
3
think
de
as
los
cities
incisos
like
que se
that,
muestran aquí.
we need to take care
En la
of this
segunda
shared
se
resource.
necesita que seleccionen solamente 2. Tienen que seleccionar los 2 forzosamente. No pueden seleccionar 1 o 3. Tienen que ser 2. La tercera y la quinta pregunta es de una única selección, mientras que la cuarta también es de 2 opciones, ¿no? Hay que seleccionar 2 para que se pueda someter la respuesta y enviarla a- a la hoja de respuestas.
Thank you for all the comments as well on the chat. I mean, this is another parallel discussion. I lost track of all the comments because there were just too many, and this is great. I mean, thank you everyone that it's, making strong opinions, and this is our waters anyways, and we share them. So this is what the forum is for. Just a couple of other minutes, and then we're gonna revise the answers, and I'm gonna ask the panelists also to give their last thoughts based on the results of the survey as well. And then wrap it up. And if I can do a small advertisement here. The forum is gonna be 5 years old this year. So you probably notice our Zoom background has a 5 or a 5 in our background. So there's gonna be a lot of things going on the forum this year, and everything related to those 5 years of extensive and intensive work with all of you. So thank you. And thank you, of course, to our sponsors, to the team, to our volunteers. And I'm gonna start doing that every event that we have. I'm gonna say thank you all the year, just to celebrate our 5 years. And so it feels like 25 for some of us, but it's been just 5 years. So we've grown exponentially thanks to you, and thanks to our basins, really. So anyway, that was the advertisement. So I'll leave it to you if you want to start sharing your results.
Bueno, quiero esperar nada más unos segunditos a ver si alguien más envía. Tenemos ahorita aproximadamente como 15, 16 respuestas en total de los 2 idiomas.
Rosario, just to highlight, yes, we have a 5 years anniversary. So this is really cool. And do we have the date? I think somewhere around late May.
May 29th.
May 29th.
May 29th, yes.
So everyone right now, now that we have all of you here, mark May 29 on your calendars. Still kind of figuring out some of the events, but yeah, please reserve us some time because we want to celebrate this with you.
Ok. ¿Quieres que las muestremos de una vez, Rosario? Tenemos hasta ahorita 18 respuestas.
Yes, go ahead, someone, please go ahead. Let's see. the
Ok,
trend.
bueno. Voy a mostrar
Just a
aquí
sample.
el acumulado de los dos, de las dos encuestas. Les digo, las preguntas eran exactamente las mismas. Tuvimos ahorita una participación de 11 personas que llenaron la encuesta en español y 7 que la llenaron en inglés. Respecto a la primera pregunta, aquí van a ver, bueno, en la presentación nada más tenemos la versión en inglés, pero bueno, es porque las respuestas estaban demasiado extensas para mostrar las dos versiones. Y déjenme nada más poder seleccionar.
So the creation of the environmental groups,
Bueno, la primera pregunta
the
dice
future
cuáles
investment,
considera que
water
son los tres
conservation,
puntos más importantes abordados en el Acta 331 referente al Tratado de Aguas de 1944 y tenemos varias opciones. Dentro de ellas, pues las que han sido más votadas son la respuesta B, la G, la A y la D, que en este caso la A corresponde a garantizar la asignación anual de agua de México a los Estados Unidos utilizando los afluentes, todos los afluentes. La B dice creación de grupos de trabajo de política pública y de medio ambiente. La D, definición de criterios de operación de presas internacionales relativos al almacenamiento. La D, definición de criterios de operación de las presas internacionales. Ah, perdón, creo que esta ya la había comentado. Y la G, consideración de inversión futura en programas de conservación y eficiencia. Bueno, la segunda pregunta, se les pedía que seleccionaran dos de estas opciones. Las más votadas entonces fueron la C, la A y la D. En este caso, la C es aún con la distribución de presas del cumplimiento a otros tributarios mexicanos, la escasez del agua. Déjenme ver que no alcanzo a ver toda la pregunta en español. La escasez del agua o las condiciones de sequía permanentes provocarán disputas o conflictos ante una mayor presión de otros afluentes. La respuesta A dice, posibles afectaciones al sector agrícola de Tamaulipas y Nuevo León ante reducción de reservas. Y la respuesta D dice, mejoramiento de las relaciones de México-Estados Unidos ante el cumplimiento más predecible de México. La tercera pregunta, la más votada fue la B, que es un poco. La pregunta dice, ¿en qué medida considera que esta acta podría solucionar el problema de predictibilidad y certeza en las entregas de Estados Unidos a México? Entonces la mayoría seleccionó que un poco. La cuarta pregunta dice que qué asuntos quedan pendientes por resolver. Entonces aquí también se les pidió que seleccionaran dos respuestas. Las más votadas fueron la A y la B, muy también seguida de la C. La A, perdón, dice que la definición de sequía extraordinaria y posibilidades de reducción de asignaciones para ambos países. La B, la sobreasignación de agua en ambos países. Y la C, conservación de agua en ambos países. Finalmente, la pregunta 5, se les pedía que seleccionaran solamente una de estas opciones y dice, ¿en qué medida considera que esta acta mejora la predictibilidad de las entregas a los usuarios de México? Igual, la mayoría comenta que un poco y pues seguido de nada o que no está muy seguro de cómo podría ayudar esta acta a mejorar la predictibilidad. Y pues bueno, esas fueron las 5 preguntas. Gracias a todos por su participación. Rosario, pues te cedo otra vez la palabra.
Thank you, Saul. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone who participated in the survey. We're going to share those results also later on our website, the complete results. Um, Jose Luis, any thoughts on the results of the survey? I don't want to pick one because they're all important.
Pues
And some of them were already
simplemente
discussed, but
reiterarles mi
final
agradecimiento por la
thoughts, 1
invitación a
minute
participar
with final thoughts.
en esta importante y trascendente plática. Creo que, creo que nos obliga a todo mundo, pues, a ver las cosas con una seriedad muy profesional. Y realmente me convencieron mucho las conclusiones, ¿eh? Creo que la mayor parte de la gente estamos en línea con respecto a lo que implica la 331 y muy particularmente estamos muy de acuerdo en lo que nos falta hacer. También creo que hay una gran coincidencia en las cosas que, pues, en qué se afecta también con esta minuta. En todos los casos creo que las conclusiones me dejan satisfecho de haber participado y sin duda que hay mucha tarea por delante que hacer.
Because we all agree on that, we do have homework to do. Samuel, final thoughts on these results?
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, yes, very happy for the conclusions. One thing that I'm really glad that we have recognized is that the value of the environmental work group, that one of all the things that so I'm really happy that came through. The other part will be that the over allocation, or that some of the issues that are still there is this perhaps, Rosario, something that ah I just want to share always, or right now, to make my diligence, just to share the screen for where are we on the delivery of water for this last cycle. I don't think that we are gonna get there. I just want to make sure that all of you know where we are right now, and that I think a lot of these things will be to be continued. Yeah, this graph, I just really want to share it. Many of us water geeks here, we just stare at these graphs way too much. I know I make the joke that now you don't need a PhD to realize that this line will never get here. Before I used to kind of hide behind my PhD. Right now, it is not. I think we're in the worst conditions. I do think that we are not gonna get here. I think we're gonna have a very steep slope, or how are we gonna meet this deficit, and then in the next year try to comply with the second cycle.
Es una
It
gráfica,
is
Samuel,
an uphill battle.
Interrumpiéndote, Samuel, es una gráfica muy, muy explicativa. No sé si la puedas poner nuevamente, Samuel.
Voy.
This is finishing.
Es una gráfica que nos dice
As
todo,
soon
¿eh?
as it ends, I'll go
Nomás hay que
there.
revisarla como dice Samuel. La ve uno y la vuelve a ver y ve uno claramente qué es lo que está pasando.
In 1 hour,
Miren, si se dan cuenta, en el
6:20
ciclo
to
36 hay una
7:20,
tendencia
7:30.
de entregas, que es la tendencia normal. Solamente
At
cuando hubo un
7:30.
monzón de lluvia muy importante que derramaron las presas, hubo un incremento. Y así ocurre en todos los ciclos, ¿eh? Esta tendencia normal, esta pendiente normal que vemos sistemáticamente, es el resultado de que se está sacando más agua de la que debiéramos en forma permanente. Mientras no arreglemos la sobreexplotación, esta seguirá siendo la tendencia. ¿Qué les quiero decir? Que si no hay un ciclón o un monzón muy importante que haga derramar las presas, seguramente terminaremos debiendo del orden de 1.500 millones de metros cúbicos. Eso no se requiere mucha ciencia para entenderlo, como dice Samuel.
Thank you, Samuel and Jose Luis. Karen, your last thoughts, wisdom.
I think there's still a lot of unresolved issues. You know, one of the things that we need to address too is trust. I think both Commissioner Resendez and Keener have recognized that building trust is a very important exercise, whatever we do going forward. And I think they also recognize that, you know, there's a sense that we're not all in this together and that we need to be, and that we can't have winners and losers. I think that it's also important to recognize that we need water to carry water. And we need water for ecosystem functioning. And the river itself, although it's not defined as a user, quote unquote, it needs water in it to function as a river. And it's important to recognize too the recreational and the human well-being values that the Rio Grande provides. People want to enjoy their natural resources. They want to recreate on them. They want to be able to go down to the river and look at it. And, you know, projects are happening that are also underscoring those values, like the Laredo Binational Park that the Rio Grande International Studies Center is undertaking, a very important project. All of the protected areas, private lands and protected areas all along the river that provide vantage points for recreation, canoeing, observing wildlife, and et cetera. Those are really important to recognize as well. They enrich our lives, and the river enriches our life. And I think it's important to support these types of programs and places that support us thinking differently about the river to enjoy its natural beauty. And hopefully for people to desire that it remains a river for its own good into the future.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I want to wrap it up before I say goodbye. If you allow me just 1 minute to try. It's not going to be easy, but I'm going to try. But just want to, in order for my robot out there that is taking notes, I want him or her to record this. Our river is also a border, and that was said by Karen. We need to think about trade-offs. We all have to give in order for everyone to have something. So it can't be a zero-sum game. It has to be a negotiation. The river is asking for it, is yelling for us to do that. It's overexhausted, so we cannot keep moving forward assuming there is enough river for everyone forever at this rate of growth. So we need to work on our demand. We need to work on our responsibilities beyond even the treaty. So this goes beyond the treaty itself, even beyond the MENA 331. It's protecting whatever we have left on the river and our natural resources for future generations, regardless of the treaty. So the problems go beyond those needs. Towards the future, we need to think of a specific, of course, we need to think about protecting the environment. And I think we have even some important steps towards that. Now we need to make them happen, right? Release of pools, flows. Of course, we need to define what extraordinary drought is, or just think about a different approach, right? If this is the amount of water that we have, because we need to give water rights to users, to the ecosystem, to economic growth, and to the cities. So we need to work on how do we distribute that across towards a long-term vision, of course, towards sustainable. And what are the priorities? So we need to talk about the priorities in the long run, not just the short term. And we need to share what is available, no more than we have, because we live, I think from my perspective, we are living in an illusion that we have X and Y amount of water, and really we just don't have that, not for being able to plan for the future. And I want to end up with what Karen just mentioned, the trust. I mean, that's even a bigger issue than water scarcity, from my perspective. We need to build on trust. We need to build on the human capacity. We need to build on education. We need to build on communication. We need to build on everything that we're lacking. And we didn't thought it was necessary when it comes to water issues. With that, I hope it made some sense. I hope this was useful as it was for all of us. Thank you, our guests today. That was awesome, really. If I may, I'm going to applause. Vamos a ir un aplauso, por favor. Aunque no se escuche. Gracias, gracias. We're going to have another coffee break coming up. We're going to talk now about 319, 323, and 330 on the Colorado River Basin. And what are those implications? So that's coming up next month. And then we're going to have our anniversary events. So thank you. Thank you to our sponsors, as always, to the team, to the audience, to everyone. Thank you. And see you soon.